Welcome to the Total Soccer Show Weekend Review. Just when you thought the Premier League might be a bit of a bore, there were precisely 0 wins for any of the top 4. Man City's takedown was almost barbaric as we experienced the thrill of soccer led by Michael Carrick. United were energetic and fun and too much to take as they kept catching poor old Man City on the break. Arsenal had the chance to go 9 points ahead, but neither them nor Forest had any shots, so that idea was dead. Aston Villa lost the Jack Grealish derby at home, and Liverpool could only muster a draw with a team in the relegation zone. And things are looking rough for Thomas Frank, who's now covered in that "I lost to West Ham" stank. In Spain, there were whistles and jeers from the Madrid crowd as the team weren't exactly doing them proud. But an American coach beat Barcelona to upset the apple cart, so now the top 2 in Spain are only a point apart. In Germany, Leipzig took the lead over Bayern, and their dream was alive before the Bavarians woke up and then scored 5. And Senegal retained their AFCON title and are living the dream after a controversial final and one of the worst Panenka penalties you've ever seen. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, the Taylor Rocco's here. Hello, Taylor. How are you?
I am well, Ryan. This was a crazy weekend, especially if you tuned into games at random moments like I did, where seeing Leipzig up 1-0 at halftime, I thought, well, I've got to see this, and then it went a different way. Tuning into AFCON about 30 minutes into that game, and then seeing the way that played out was fascinating. And the Manchester derby on top of it all. What a weekend. What a time to be alive. What an introduction by Ryan Bailey.
Thank you very much. You sound sprightly today. It's almost as if Man United are a completely different team and won a big rivalry.
Hey, I have hope again until he kills me. Woo!
Yay. Give it a few months. Graham Ruffin,
In
hello,
your
how
face,
are you?
Paul Scholes.
I'm good, Ryan Bailey. I'm even better after that introduction, which genuinely was an all-timer. I did wonder, because you put it in our Slack chat over the weekend, what you were going to rhyme Carrick with. Barbaric. That works. And also the West Ham stank. I enjoyed that too. So
Thank you very much.
Congrats.
Rhyme Zone wasn't hot on Carrick. I kind of had to come up with that myself.
You had to use your own brain for that one.
I know. Very proud, very proud. Joe Lowry, how are you?
Ryan, I'm great. I would echo Graham's sentiments about that introduction. I was going to stage a walk-off for me and Taylor and Graham. I was ushering them all into the tunnel until your intro was of that quality, and I decided I just don't have it in me. I could come back. I could apologize. We could be victorious. It just doesn't matter. I couldn't do it to you. I couldn't.
It's because I've got my towel, Joe, and no one's going to take it away from me. That's why it's so good.
Yeah, that's why. That's exactly why. Also, Taylor, I think Ryan posed to you, it's almost as if Manchester United are a completely different team and won a big derby. The second half of that is true. At least that we can say. The second half of that is true. Just to
get in early.
I think I've set up my stall, and now I'm just going to get to watch you guys play.
Oh, a little dig to the ribs, Taylor. Did you feel that?
I felt more than a little dig. I felt like an intentional shot, and a hurtful one at that. I would talk more trash against Joe, but I don't have enough ammo about Phoenix Rising's media.
Just walk off. Just walk off.
I mean, I do know that there's a strong argument from the fan base that whomever was doing the color commentary really let them down for most of the season, so I don't know if it was that at all, or who knows.
The pressure's starting to get to me. It's happening. It's happening.
Oh boy. Well, we'll get to all of those big incidents and much more in this weekend review. Before we get there, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the best way to support this here endeavour. Thank you to everybody who does so. All the weekend we can't fit into this main feed episode. We'll go into Weekend Review Extra, and it's going to be quite a lot because there's a lot happened this weekend as established. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. You'll also get access to our Discord where all of the cool kids are hanging out. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. Why don't we kick off proceedings at Old Trafford, the home of atmosphere now, apparently, where fans are chanting loudly before the game. And throughout, Manchester United 2, Manchester City 0. Michael Carrick wins on his return as caretaker boss. Well-deserved win, we should say as well, with Mbeumo and Dogu with the goals in this one. Loads of offside. 3 goals offside, I think, were struck off as well for Man United 2. Harry Maguire hitting the bar within the first few minutes as well from incredibly close range. Taylor, this was lots of energy, lots of one-touch passing. Pretty good to watch. The first Man United game I've watched in a while where I've thought this is quite good.
Same. Very much the same. And I was really surprised by that because my expectations were low, as we talked about on the Weekender. And I think my estimations of Ruben Amorim are even lower after this performance because, by all accounts, a key part of this was Michael Carrick saying, it's a derby. If you get the crowd on your side, it will go really well. And so with that was a focus on intensity, on pressing, on tackling, on kind of hitting hard and maybe leaving a little boot in. Maybe some players got a little bit lucky with that one, but it seems like that kind of intensity and physicality was a deliberate thing to start the game and get the crowd into it. And I think they did. And it also, I can't tell if City just came into this one maybe thinking that it was theirs for the taking, feeling very confident and comfortable, or if they were just rattled by that start. But it was also the most kind of disjointed I've seen from Manchester City in a very long time. Granted, they have injuries and omissions from the squad for myriad reasons, but it still was a not standard Man City Pep performance, and it was a very much above standard performance for Manchester United.
This was the best I've seen Manchester United play in a long, long time. And I'm going to get in here early before Joe does his bit. I'm sure nobody, even Taylor, although I could understand if this wasn't the case, I'm sure nobody's going to get carried away here, right? Manchester United are not back. I'm sure
Carrick
away. That actually works quite well. He might not necessarily be the answer, although I've got more to say on Michael Carrick's candidacy for this job. And previously we've seen Manchester United produce in games like this before, in big games. Like the big games haven't been the issue for Manchester United for the last few years. It's been everything else. And so we've had false dawns, and I suspect this will be another false dawn here. However, let's call a spade in terms of this one game. I thought Manchester United were brilliant in this match. As I said, their best performance in a long time. A better all-round performance than I think they ever produced under Ruben Amorim. And that was the most striking thing. How rounded they were. And I don't mean that in terms of like possession. City had more of the ball in this game by quite a distance. I think it was like 65-35 or something like that. But I thought Manchester United out of possession, they were well organised in their defensive shape. I thought they made it very difficult for City to play through them. I thought they pressured the ball well in intelligent ways, particularly in the wide areas through Dorgu and Dalot in particular, who, yes, fortunate to stay on the pitch with that tackle on Doku, but he was getting back to the byline, covering back in a way that I just don't associate with Diogo Dalot. So I can't quite quantify that extra effort from players on the day, but it was there. And then the most exhilarating thing about this performance was how dangerous Manchester United were on the break when they got bodies forward. The opening goal to this game, inject it straight into my veins. That is my favourite. I'm sure I've said this on the show before. That is my favourite sort of goal, front to back in 10 seconds. Absolutely lethal, where Manchester United have a 4-on-3 in their favour. But then the execution in that moment as well, where Bruno waits the perfect amount of time. There's disguise. It doesn't. You don't know whether he's going to play it out to the right to Ahmad or to Mbeumo on the left until the very last moment, and then Mbeumo takes it quickly. It was just ruthless from Manchester United. And I think the most surprising thing about their performance was how effective they were in playing out of pressure. You see it in that goal where Mbeumo takes a little touch around the Man City player and then they're away. But there was moments in the second half, and we spoke about this before we started recording, where Man United had like little passing triangles, like little rondos in the middle of the pitch, and I just do not associate that at all with this Manchester United team. So Ruben Amorim must have been watching aspects of this game and wondering where these players were for his 18 months in charge.
And it was really interesting for me watching this game and then watching Real Madrid and the way they looked under Arbeloa when they had a lot of those big names in there, maybe an expectation that they're going to have a point to prove, they're going to want to show that they're still Real Madrid, and it felt like a lot of the same issues, a lot of the same kind of stagnant play, especially in the first half of that game. By contrast, for Manchester United, it felt like this was a team that had been working on this for a very long time, and it's maybe a one-off performance. I think you're right, Graham. I think there's pain to come when they play a team that is willing to cede possession and make Manchester United find out opportunities. But there's little things, like as you mentioned there, when they have that counterattacking goal, they have the 4v3, but it's only two players who end up being involved, right? It's Mbeumo on the turn with an incredible turn that launches it. He plays it to Bruno, then he makes the overlap and gets the ball back. But Ahmad holding that space out wide, I thought for all the world it's going wide to him and he's going to kind of one-touch the shot. But he holds his space, he holds his positioning, and it keeps the defense stretched out so that underlapping run from Mbeumo is on and is open. And it's just an awareness that I didn't expect to see. It's a togetherness that I didn't expect to see from this team, and we haven't seen from them. And I'll also say I watched the first 15 minutes of the September version of this derby, in which City are pretty dominant, and it's just night and day how short of confidence Manchester United looked in every single position. It's loose touches, it's heavy touches, it's just errant passing. People don't look like they understand what's being asked of them. They don't look comfortable with where they're being asked to play. Bruno Fernandes especially in that game. By contrast, I thought he was electric. I thought Casemiro looked excellent. I thought the attack looked strong. I thought the defense looked good. It was a very good performance of Manchester United at a time when I think they desperately needed it.
Submarine Captain Joe Larry, would you like to launch your torpedo of scorn?
I will defend what Joe has said before Joe even has to speak. Because what Joe said was they are still not a good team, and I think that is a very fair statement, even if this was a good performance. Joe, have I miscategorized?
No, not really, although I'll be even more nuanced than that. I was the person when Amorim was fired that was talking about how they had the fourth best XG differential in the Premier League, or something along those lines, right? I mean, like, I don't think this Manchester United team is a bad team. They're just not a great team. But in this game, and basically my top line thoughts are everything that Graham said, and Taylor, a lot of what you've said as well. This was a great performance for Manchester United. I'm just not going to be the one who falls into the trap, and I don't think any of us are, as Graham has already kind of talked about, of saying, oh, well, things are good, back on track, everything's done, new coach is in, he's fixed it all, unlike the past three coaches who have also beaten Manchester City and haven't fixed it all, right? I mean, that's the reality. But I don't want to take away from this performance, truly, because this was so much fun to watch for Manchester United. It wasn't just them finding opportunities on the break. It was them finding opportunities through those quick rondos that Graham referenced, especially in the second half. They played a good game, and I think they are set up as a team to win in games like this. If you have Dorgu on one side and Diallo on the other, you are set up to play in transition, right? And ultimately, this Manchester United squad, in my view, still doesn't have the pieces to really effectively and reliably break down a good low block at the level that you probably need to be a league title winner. But in these games where they know there's going to be space to attack into and they can do it with ruthlessness, I really enjoyed what they brought to the table. That's the Manchester United side. I thought City were dreadful in this game. And I do think this is a things can be two things situation. It wasn't just Manchester United making City look bad, though they did that, to their credit. It was also City making themselves look bad. And I think the way we can differentiate between those things is, especially in the first 10 minutes, and maybe it's the crowd, Taylor, like you talked about, maybe it's the intensity of Manchester United, maybe it's that it was nowhere near a first-choice back line because Vardiol and Diaz are both injured. The City distribution from the back, even under no pressure, was horrible. Yeah. It was rough. It destroyed City's chances at actually building into this game. Ake playing at left back and Elaine playing at left-sided center back. Struggled on the ball in the first 5, 6, 7 minutes of this game. Kusanov as well, playing as the right center back. He was poor. I thought Doku struggled early on in this game, just losing the ball without any real pressure. That was a problem. And then you get into the fact that I don't think the individual City attackers executed particularly well in this game. I didn't think Doku was dangerous. I didn't think Foden was dangerous. They needed more, and Cherki at halftime brought a little bit more against a really deep 4-4-2 block that was effective. Again, this is a blurrier area of was it City being bad or United being really good? It's probably a little bit of both in this particular instance, but City just couldn't create chances against a low block, and we've seen that story before. I do think Cherki made a difference when he comes on for the second 45 minutes here, but this was both Man City being poor and unforcedly poor, and Manchester United being good, and certainly better than we've seen them in a long, long time. I'm fine with holding both of those things together, one at each end.
We got a hint in the first 10 minutes of the game that something might be up in this match for Manchester United, but I fully expected the match then to shift into a different phase because City were really edgy in those first 10 minutes. You're absolutely right, Joel. Their possession out from the back was dreadful. And it did kind of move into a different phase where City did have a lot more of the ball higher up the field, but when it moved into that phase of the game, they were just so risk-averse. It felt really laboured, really slow, and some of that is obviously on Manchester United and how they were able to close the lines. I thought their defensive line was dropped a little bit deeper than it had been under Ruben Amorim. You bring Harry Maguire into that Manchester United backline, and I think that in itself is an indicator of how Manchester United were going to play, but City were just never able to get anything going. And then we saw the vulnerability in defensive transition, which is something going back to last season, that was something that killed Manchester United. And credit to City, credit to United, they made the most of that. But yeah, two things. Things would be two things here. City they were dreadful in this game.
Graham, you teased earlier that you had thoughts on Carrick's longevity as Man United coach. I've seen a lot of this sort of positive PR about him and his family have had season tickets since he retired. He's the chosen one.
Yeah, that's the criteria.
Yeah, is that all right?
To be fair, if he has had season tickets for that long and Ratcliffe and the Glazers haven't chucked him out of his seat for some kind of hospitality suite, then that is quite impressive.
You know, he's paying full price, by the way, right?
Yeah, well, maybe he's still got the gumption for this job. My piece on Carrick is obviously nobody should get carried away. And the last time Manchester United had a successful interim manager was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Ole's at the wheel. What could go wrong?
While I am, to a certain extent, a Solskjaer sympathiser, Manchester United made a hasty decision on Solskjaer. I think we all remember the Rio Ferdinand moment, get the contract out, give him what he wants. That was ridiculous. And people got...
Gary Neville in the post-game interview asked him, how much do you want? There was a bit of a strong reaction Put it that way. Yeah.
So that can't happen again, no matter what happens. Manchester United win every single game to the end of the season. That can't happen again. At the same time, we have also spoken about, let me see my piece here. We have also spoken about how these big clubs are moving into like a different place with the managers that they're hiring, with Chelsea getting Liam Rossinier, Bayern Munich getting Vincent Kompany from a lower level. And Michael Carrick does have some coaching experience behind him. He was a coach at Manchester United. He was obviously a manager in his own right at Middlesbrough. And while that didn't go like overly successful for him, you speak to Borough fans and I think they'll tell you they actually played some nice stuff, and it was a bit of a bold call by Borough to get rid of him. He wasn't humiliated in that job or anything. So I think if he has a decent body of work behind him until the end of the season, and Manchester United can make a reasoned, logical decision and weigh him up against other candidates, there's no reason why he shouldn't be in the discussion. But Manchester United need to give themselves the time to make that decision and give themselves some evidence until the end of the season and not rush into anything. That's kind of my piece on Carrick.
I think that's a fair piece to have. I might disagree that if they win every single game, I think you could say there's probably been a turnaround there, and maybe you have to consider giving him the deal. But I also think at this point, like I thought bringing in Ten Hag, who had an overarching philosophy and wanted to implement a structure that I think works really well at Ajax, I thought that was going to be a smart appointment. Obviously, it wasn't. I thought Amorim, for his rigidity coming in, was still going to be a smart appointment. Now, that's largely because a certain person on this show who speaks with a Scottish accent was very hyped on him and had me thinking that maybe it would be a really exciting thing.
Wow.
All that to say, at this point, it's just sort of like what seems like it might be a slam dunk has not worked. What seems like a roll of the dice has also not worked. What seems like a stabilizing thing in Louis van Gaal has also not worked. So it is sort of there's no obvious way to improve things in my mind. There's no obvious candidate that makes everything better. So I think it's worth, taking your time evaluating and seeing how things go. But Carrick off to a pretty good start, I have to say.
Yeah, couldn't have started much better. I think it's safe to say that
3-0 instead of 2-0. A ridiculously disallowed offside goal.
Yeah, obviously it doesn't really matter, but I do wonder if the PGMOL are going to issue apology for that disallowed Mount goal, because I couldn't understand why it was disallowed. I thought they took the line from the wrong player. But anyway, Carrick's record is ridiculously good over the two interim spells now. He's had 4 games in charge and has beaten Pep Guardiola, Mikel Arteta, Thomas Tuchel, and who's the fourth one? Unai Emery, which is quite silly. But yeah, let's see how he handles Fulham and West Ham coming up in the next couple of weeks. I think that's actually going to be a bit of a barometer of.
That was it. Yeah, I was looking at February 10th, going to West Ham. If things are still strong by that point,
the stank awaits. That's
the
all I'm
stank.
saying.
The stank. Speaking of, there's plenty of Premier League to get to. We're going to do that on Weekend Review Extra. Can we give just a minute, Graham, to that Tottenham defeat to West Ham, a 2-1 win for West Ham? Callum Wilson, former jet ski owner, with the stoppage time winner. In a pretty dramatic victory there. How is Thomas Frank not being fired at this point? I don't quite get that, because it felt like before the weekend, like if Tottenham didn't win this game or they lost this game, he'll be done, and he seems to be hanging on.
Yeah, I mean, he is hanging on, and all the reporting suggests that he's going to get the Borussia Dortmund game at least in the Champions League this week. But this match, this feels like the point of no return, where the home fans are singing about him being sacked in the morning. There was a report by Jacob Steinberg for The Guardian which talked about how West Ham fans were leaving this game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium shocked at how toxic the atmosphere was from the home fans, which feels like the final nail.
We would never.
Yeah, it feels like the final nail in the coffin. But the result was bad enough, but the way that West Ham were just running through Spurs, Crescencio Somerville in particular, had an absolute field day, dribbling through non-existent tackles and carrying the ball 30 yards at a time with almost no opposition. West Ham might have scored late in this game, but I thought they were the better team. So for one reason or another, this has just not worked for Thomas Frank, and I think Spurs are very much in the phase now of figuring out who replaces him, and if he hasn't been sacked by now, it's purely because they're waiting for the person they want to replace him, is my theory anyway.
Michael Carrick?
Well, who knows? If he wins every game until the end of the season and Manchester United hire someone else, maybe he's getting the Spurs job.
Time will tell. All right, the rest of the Premier League games we're going to put on Weekend Review Extra. In this show, we've got big games in the Bundesliga, in Serie A and the Liga coming up. But right now, or after this break, in fact, we're going to talk about the AFCON final. Join us then.
Total Soccer Show, welcome back to the weekend review. Let's turn our attention to AFCON, which reached its climax this weekend. And what an interesting climax it was indeed. Should we do a quick tight 10 minutes on Egypt 0, Nigeria 0 on the third
Equal
place
billing.
game?
We give equal billing to third and fourth place games on this.
Graham, did you watch?
No, I didn't watch that one. No.
Were you
Right.
scorned by Egypt's pretty dreadful semi-final?
Yeah, never watching them again.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, let's get to the main event then. Senegal 1, Morocco 0. A very, very eventful game, particularly in the closing stages. Pape Gueye with the winner, an absolute stonker of a winner as well, I should say, after plenty of controversy. I'll read out some of the timestamps here. In the 92nd minute, Senegal scored a late winner. That was cancelled out for a foul in the build-up. No VAR check on that one. 98th minute, Morocco receive a penalty after VAR intervenes. VAR check on that one after contact in the box. Both quite controversial. We can talk about that. Then comes a nearly 15-minute delay after Senegal leave the field. There's some violence from the stands, it seems. The players refusing to play on in protest of that decision. And then, 24 minutes past the 90th minute mark, we get Brahim Diaz stepping up to take the penalty. He tries a Panenka, and Edouard Mendy says, "What was that? You just passed it into my arms." Goodness me, that was the worst Panenka.
He said, thanks, we agreed on that in the dressing room so that well, that's the theory,
Well,
but...
there's lots of weird sort of conspiracy theories going around this game, including one, Graham, about the idea that none of the Senegal players celebrated when Brahim Diaz missed the penalty. They just ran back, almost as if they had the rest of the game to try and compete in, rather than celebrating for several minutes. But I don't know what I believe there, but an interesting game, Graham, at its conclusion.
Yeah, to say the least. I'm honestly, I'm unsure where to start with this match. Like, are we even going to talk about the game itself? Like, it was a relatively entertaining game for 90 minutes. First half was quite open, played at a good speed. Second half was quite cagey. The end of the game is where all the juicy stuff is, where you have the two, I thought, particularly soft refereeing decisions. Of course, the first one, as you mentioned, Ryan, doesn't go to VAR because the referee is quick on his whistle to give the decision in Morocco's favour, and so it couldn't go to VAR because the whistle had blown before the ball had gone into the back of the net. I thought both of them were very soft, and I just think, I know you shouldn't, or by the letter of the law, you shouldn't referee games in a different way depending on the circumstance, but I think it is human nature to do that, and you just cannot have a tournament decided in the last minute on a penalty like that. Like, it needs to be an absolute stonewaller to give a penalty in that moment, and it clearly wasn't. But then, of course, you have the Senegal walk-off. Not sure what to think about that, because obviously it is not really acceptable to do that. And I think they'll be punished by CAF or maybe even FIFA after this game. At the same time, I did think it was unfair that this tournament might have been decided by two refereeing calls. And there is some context here where this has been a talking point throughout this tournament, that Morocco had received favourable refereeing decisions throughout. Of course, this was Morocco's tournament. They've spent billions on these stadiums. They hadn't won it in 50 years. They put everything into winning this AFCON. And so when people question the refereeing, I don't think they're actually questioning like corruption or whether the referee had been paid off or anything like that, although Taylor is raising his eyebrows. I think it's more an implied. My personal opinion is it's more of an implied thing. They did get a lot of favourable decisions. I thought they got a lot of favourable decisions in this match as well. There was also off the field stuff like Senegal before this game complaining about the facilities that Morocco were providing them with. The fact that they arrived in the airport for the game, or the train station, I think it might have been, yeah.
That's
and there was
part of
no
it, yeah.
security, and they had to wade through the crowds to get to their bus, and then there was the scenes with the towel during the game with Edouard Mendy. So I think there was a lot that pushed the Senegal players right to the edge in that moment, and that was the thing that tipped them over the edge. And so with that context, I can understand why it came to that boiling point, but obviously grateful that they returned to the pitch. It seems due to Sadio Mane telling them all to get a grip and face the penalty.
Yeah, from what I've heard and read, it sounds like also maybe there was a threat of we will get kicked out of the World Cup if we don't finish this game. And so that maybe is what helped bring some players back out. That's some reporting I saw. I do think the Senegalese players thought that the ref had been bribed, and I think that they said that pretty loudly. I think that's why you see a lot of the Moroccan players having the reaction they do, because I think at that point you are saying you all are cheating, you paid this ref, that's the only reason why you're here. And I think that's why certain players had that sort of like, come on, man, like, don't say that. Like, I don't think there's any truth to that, but I think that there is reason why Senegal would feel that way. There is a history with CAF of corruption, of match fixing. You have the head of CAF being like banned from football for taking bribes. You have various officiating scandals in which referees either self-reported that they had been offered bribes, or investigations found that referees had accepted bribes, including one who was about to referee at the 2018 World Cup. The head of the Ghanaian FA is forced to step down for 2 years. He gets reelected as soon as he's back, but he is banned for financial improprieties. And it's worth noting that there is also in 2024 a scandal in which, 2017 it is, Ghanaian referee Joseph Lamptey banned by FIFA for match fixing. That's during a 2018 World Cup qualifier, in which he awards a very dubious penalty for South Africa against Senegal with the foul committed by Kalidou Koulibaly. So there is a history there, and I think there is a reason why the players were immediately like, okay, the fix is in. This is how it's been. You all want Morocco to win. We get it. And I think that's why they walk off. And this happened with Nigeria at the Women's World Cup in 2019 when VAR is first being brought into the women's game. And it's correctly used there, but there's a feeling that like goals are being taken away from us. Officials are intervening in a way that they're not meant to. And I think in African football, at least, there have been examples where that's been due to money being put on the game or like bribes being offered. And so it doesn't excuse what Senegal did by any stretch, but I think it does at least let me understand why there was that reaction and why there was that sentiment. And then you look at the video of the way the ball kids are stealing Edouard Mendy's towel, and Nigeria's before that, and players even are trying to stop him from getting a towel to dry off his gloves, and it feels like there's other stuff going on. And it does end up with a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth if you had a growing appreciation for Morocco, which I think Graham and I both did, having done the 101 about them and enjoyed them in 2022. It felt like they were a team that we were like really excited to root for and see what they could do, and this has soured that a little bit. Even if it ends up going Senegal's way in the greatest ball don't lie sort of moment, I think, in soccer history.
Seriously. Can I add to the chaos just a little bit? Because there's one thing that we haven't talked about yet, which is the post-match pressers for both managers. So this is from Jay Harris in The Athletic. I'm just going to read the quotes because it's going to be better that way. This is Jay Harris's writing. Chaos in Pape Thiaw's post-match press conference, Senegal manager. He walked in holding a young girl's hand, was booed by Moroccan journalists, and applauded by Senegal journalists. They started arguing, and he walked out, leading to the press officer saying that there will be no more press conferences. Then you have the Jay Harris writing about Morocco's post-match presser, which is a Moroccan journalist asked Walid Regragui if he will resign tonight or tomorrow. The Morocco manager looked furious and asked multiple times what organization they worked for. Another journalist then called for Regragui to resign before saying that children were crying in the stands because of Regragui. That's
my favorite detail.
That got me the most. I mean, this is having been in, and we've all been in pressers before, having been in USMNT pressers and trying to imagine what this would be like, I can't even picture this. Like, this would not happen in a U.S. soccer presser, which I think is also just a reminder. We talk about CONCACAF being wild all the time. Yeah, there are other confederations that have some wild stuff going on here as well. This game, I honestly can't believe this was a real thing. Has anybody ever seen a team walk off the field before a game is done for like a sporting? I mean, really, let's call it what it is. It was a sporting reaction to the refereeing, which I would count in the sporting bucket. I've never seen that happen before. I've never seen anything like we saw in this game. That it was a final is even crazier. Yeah, I have some on-field stuff, but I'll save it for just a second, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yikes.
And
insane.
And the fact we come back from a 16-minute delay where it's not clear that we're going to see the penalty, and there's fighting in the stands, which wasn't really shown on the camera, but there was riot police in front of the Senegalese fans inside the stadium. We now learn that there was fighting or scrapping, I don't know if you want to class it as fighting, in the press box between journalists and Moroccan journalists.
Definition of scrapping, if it's not fighting, please, Graham?
I don't know. I don't know why I made that distinction.
It's scrapping is when you go, see? Before.
Yeah.
Scrappy do.
Let me at him. I think scrapping is more like... Scrapping is more like, hold me back, that kind of like posturing, where I think fighting is like proper violent. I don't think anything like that was happening in the press box, Joe.
Oh, wow.
But we come back after all of that, 16-minute stoppage, players come out, and then Brahim Diaz does that penalty kick. A penalty kick so bad that there are genuine questions about whether he deliberately meant to miss it.
Genuine questions, but I think that's a little bit silly. It's similar to the time that Clint Dempsey skied a penalty when the U.S. was beating Mexico 2-0. And then the narrative somehow became he did it on purpose because he wanted to preserve the 2-0 scoreline. It's just like, no, he did. Clint Dempsey doesn't care. Clint Dempsey wants to score goals. Yeah. Brahim Diaz definitely wanted to score goals. He was already the Golden Boot winner, which he had to accept, and I felt very bad for. But the way he protests, the way he is demanding that be given, he absolutely wants that to be given, and when it is, wants to be the one to take it. But I think that was a mistake. And I do think Regragui is at fault for at least some of this, because there's a moment when he comes onto the pitch to pull two of his players away. I think Hakimi is one of them. And he is trying to do what a coach should be doing in this moment, which is keep his team focused, keep him out of this chaos, because anything can happen. Something can be said, a player can throw a punch, and now you're down a man, or you're down two men, or the match is postponed, or whatever. And he pulls them away, but then he gets into it. And then he himself starts things back up and gets into it with the coach and gets into it with a couple different coaches for Senegal and has words with the official. And now the whole team comes back in and creates more chaos and more drama and means that his players aren't as focused. If he circles them up and has them just kind of focused and hydrating and getting ready for what's to come, I wonder if maybe that penalty kick is more discussed, or if it is El Nassiri ends up taking it the way it looked like he was going to before he turns it over to Brahim Diaz. But Diaz is losing his mind that penalty hasn't been given prior to VAR having a look, so much so that he goes to cross the ball, and he just massively overhits it into the stands, and then he goes and screams at the ref, and then the ref ends up going and looking at VAR. But even there, his head is kind of gone. He's not focused because he's really angry. He is out of camera for a long time, and I thought, good for him. He is avoiding being involved in this at all. But then when Senegal start to walk off, he is central in talking to everybody, being there, trying to get people back out, but also clearly being in animated conversations with people. And it just felt to me like his head was already gone. He was already incensed and sort of at an 11, and it doesn't seem like he ever came back down, which is maybe why he goes for that Panenka, because you would assume he's going to smash it as hard as he possibly can. So he goes for a little disguise. And it's credit to Edouard Mendy, who I think really sells his feint, but reads the run the whole way and really reads that last little bit of hesitation that I think signifies a Panenka is coming. But Mendy has good core strength, because he is very much sells the dive or the feint of the dive and then corrects and catches that ball. And it kind of felt like from that moment on, Morocco were rocked. I think Brahim Diaz was shattered. You could cut to him at other points. They did cut to him at other points in extra time, and he just looked gone. He had the 1,000-yard stale. He looked like he had seen war. It was not going to go well for him, and it did not, with him being substituted out, and then Morocco ultimately losing.
There was a game I went to in 1998, hear me out, at Stamford Bridge, where Wimbledon beat Chelsea 4-2, and Gianluca Vialli took a penalty against Neil Sullivan, Scotland's Neil Sullivan, in fact, right? And it was a Panenka, and it was so bad and so slow that Neil Sullivan dived, got up again, and caught it. And that was kind of the vibe I got from that Diaz penalty as well. And I just couldn't stop thinking, this is the most important moment in your soccer nation's history. You were going to win the tournament with this kick, and you decide to do that. I can't legislate for that. I don't understand.
I mean, but if you do it, you're legend, right?
Yeah, counterpoint legend status is on the line. 100% agree.
It's just, if you do that and you pull it off, Zidane. I saw somebody say Zidane did it and mishit it, but he had the aura of Zidane to make it go in. I think to do that is legendary and is truly iconic. To do it and have it just be very comfortably caught, I think maybe goes a different way, right? So you live by the Panenka, you die by the Panenka, is I think how that works out.
So the story goes.
Yeah. I mean, Mendy, I want to say, though, there is certainly the delay that I think has to kind of rattle some players. But then when they come back out, Mendy immediately gets a yellow card for grabbing, forgive me, I forget who it was, but he grabs his, scrappy, chinny facial hair and shakes it around, and that's why he gets the yellow card as there's a little bit of a scrum around the penalty spot. And to his credit, Mendy at that point, I think, recognizes there's no chance they're sending me off. There's no chance I'm getting a second yellow for anything, because I think there's an awareness that if you give me a red card, we are walking off again, and this is done, because now it looks so suspicious. And so once that first yellow comes out, there is just so much nonsense where he is on the line Then he walks back out and stands right in front of the ball and makes himself as big as he can, and then slowly walks back away from it with his hands up, like, I'm not doing anything, but I'm definitely doing something, but you're not going to card me. And he just does everything he can to make that moment bigger and bigger and bigger, and maybe give Brahim Diaz more and more time to think about it. And then he comfortably catches a Panenka and does not celebrate, which was its own curious moment.
Ice cold. Ice cold. Nenny was really good in this game pretty much across the board. My other two on-field thoughts, very, very briefly. One, Ismail Saibiri, you can tell I know exactly who he is, Saibari, was really good in this game, and I have seen a bit of him for PSV. He's a really good player. He's going to be somebody who's not playing at PSV at some point in the next 18 months, so I thought he ruled on the left side of central midfield for Morocco. And my other on-field takeaway, Nicholas Jackson makes Chelsea better. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Very good. Graham, final thoughts on AFCON. Was it an enjoyable tournament for you?
Graham, before you answer, can you give me that stat about Senegal that you gave us on Weekender about, like, when is the last time they lost a game at AFCON? Because that's kind of insane.
The 2019, the last time they lost in 90 minutes at AFCON, I believe. Because they won in 2021, and they didn't lose in the last tournament in regulation time. So that record lives on. As does the record that the last 14 AFCON finals have either been decided by a single goal or have gone to extra time. So that lives on. And a new record set in this game, which was for the lowest in-play percentage of any AFCON match. 38%, according to Opta.
Woof.
Yep.
Does that include all the stoppages?
Yeah, surely it does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to.
It must do. But to answer your question, Ryan, I thought it was a very good tournament. I'm not going to pretend I watched every single match like I have done previously. I guess you put
Just
a
98% of it, right?
Well, it was more than 38% of it. But I didn't watch every single match just because I guess this is the busiest soccer time of the year. Did watch a fair amount. It was a really good tournament. Set all kinds of records for the most goals per game in an AFCON tournament until we got to the semi-finals and then all the goals dried up. So those games were very cagey, including the final, and apparently the third place game, which I didn't watch, but it was 0-0.
Okay. And credit to the commentators putting this one out. With that said, the Pape goal is the first goal that Morocco have conceded from open play since March of 2025, I think. So they've gone almost a year of not conceding goals from open play. It's a really difficult Morocco team to beat. It's credit to Senegal that they, I think, had the amazing save, but also ran it as late as they did, and then kind of overcame the disallowed goal, which I think should have stood, and ended up getting that winner. I think deserved champions.
Indeed. Congratulations to Senegal, who, by the way, are reportedly facing sanctions from AFCON organisers after their unacceptable conduct of their walk-off. The only kind of acceptable walk-off is the Davy Bowie kind in Zoolander, famously. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, the rest of Europe, we're going to go to the Bundesliga, Serie A, and the Liga. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to the weekend review. Let's go to the Bundesliga, shall we? RB Leipzig 1, Bayern Munich 5. Quite the comeback for Bayern Munich there. Bayern Munich scoring 3 goals in 6 minutes towards the end here to wrap this thing up. Fun stat for you, Taylor. RB Leipzig have conceded 24 goals in the Bundesliga this season, 11 of them to Bayern Munich.
Yep. That sounds about right. And it's weird that this is exactly how I thought this game would go, even if it didn't go exactly how I thought this game would go, because I thought it would be like Leipzig getting the one. Joe, didn't we even say that? Didn't we say like 4-1?
I think we said 4-1. We were almost right on the money with this.
But it was like with Bayern being up 4-0 and then Leipzig getting the one. So this is the opposite of that with Leipzig up at halftime. But it felt, I remember coming out of halftime and thinking, if they make it like 10 or 15 minutes, I will believe that Leipzig can actually do this. But Bayern are going to come out and just be Bayern. And sure enough, Gnabry equalizes in the 50th minute. And from that moment on, it was just clear that Bayern scented blood in the water, and away they went. And it's a lot of goals. It is a comprehensively ridiculous performance from Bayern in that second half. And Jamal Musiala also returns to action. So it's like a feel-good story on top of a ridiculous win.
Yeah, I saw Musiala come off the bench. He comes on in the last 5 or so minutes of this game, picks up what I think is an unintentional assist, but it doesn't matter. I saw him come on the field, and my brain just immediately ignored the fact that I saw him. I was like, well, that can't be Jamal Musiala. He broke his leg over the summer. He can't be back yet. He's back, and Bayern haven't missed him at all the entire season. Serge Gnabry has done a phenomenal job playing as at number 10. It's stupid that he's back in this team, frankly, and Musiala is going to make them even better. And they have the luxury company of easing him back into this team, which is delightful. And the same thing's happening right now with Alphonso Davies. And they haven't missed him either. This was such a good first half from RB Leipzig. And Bayern also, sort of like the Manchester United-Man City thing, they were uncharacteristically sloppy, I thought, in the first half of this game. They didn't build through Leipzig's man-to-man press in the way that I maybe would have expected them. They weren't quite as sharp as I would have thought they would be. But at the same time, Leipzig created real chances in basically every phase. They created chances up against a sustained kind of Bayern block when Jan Diomande, who, that dude is amazing. He is so good. He just absolutely destroyed Ito on the left side for Bayern. He was amazing in this game. He created chances when Bayern were pinned a little bit deeper. And when Bayern were pressing, Leipzig did such a good job of playing vertically through Bayern's press. They create a really nice chance just 5 minutes into this game for Cardoso off of that whole sequence that Manuel Neuer makes a save. They're regularly drawing Bayern center backs out and then playing in behind them. And it worked super well. In the second half, I think Bayern cleaned up the press a little bit. They were not so easily beaten in those 1v1 duels when they pressed. And Leipzig either ran out of gas physically or mentally, or just started making bad mistakes. And that really, I think, is what it came down to in the second half. Was Serge Gnabry's equalizer in the 50th minute is Leipzig passing the ball backwards to no one, and Serge Gnabry jumps on it and scores. Harry Kane's go-ahead goal in the 67th minute is Baku, the right back for RB Leipzig, slipping. And it's an innocuous mistake, but it's a huge one nonetheless. And Kane doesn't miss from that sort of range, or at least he didn't miss in this moment. Then it's set pieces, and then it's over, really. And Bayern just really pour salt into the wound. They're just so hard to beat, this Bayern team. And even when you play 45 great minutes against them, I don't know that there's a lot of teams. I don't think there's any team in the Bundesliga who can go and play another great 45 minutes at the level that you need to really put Bayern to the sword. Leipzig certainly did not in this game.
Yeah. And Joe, I agree with everything you said. I think we've seen these games where a team will run Bayern close, and maybe it's 0-0 at half, maybe they're up 1-0, and you get to the 60th or the 65th minute, or the game's ticking away, and then you concede that equalizer. And that's when sort of like, we did it, and now like the dam is open, we've run ourselves ragged, and then the floodgates like allow Bayern to kind of do what they do. To your point in this one, it just felt like Leipzig were just like, here you go. You guys want to get back into this one? Like, we know we're not supposed to beat you. And certainly there are adjustments made by Bayern. Kimmich coming in at halftime, I think, is critical. Olise coming in the 57th minute and getting a hat trick of assists plus a goal. He's quite good. That definitely helped. But it felt for all the world like Leipzig just kind of didn't know what they were doing, didn't know how they got to the position they were in, and then sort of regressed to the mean from there.
Yeah, totally agree. This was a regrettable second 45 for Leipzig, which is just such a shame because they were so good. Truly, in that first 45, it doesn't matter against Bayern. Like, you have to be, I think Bundesliga teams have to be perfect to beat them, and that's really hard.
Can I ask a question about the broadcast? Do we know if ESPN are watching off monitors, the commentators, or are they in stadium? Because the first 5 minutes of this game, you couldn't see a thing on the pictures because there was like that smoke,
the red
mist
smoke.
that was. Yeah, it was. I couldn't imagine trying to commentate off a monitor.
I would bet
trying to watch that.
all the money that they're calling it for monitors.
How did they see it? I couldn't see it.
Occasionally, so I watched this game on mute. I don't know who was on this game, but ESPN will send occasionally a crew to some of these big games. So it honestly would not shock me if they had someone in there for this game. They're not doing that for every game, right? I think they're maybe doing that for one game a weekend. So Ryan, I think they could have had people in the stadium, but like I said, I don't know.
Well, kudos to them if they didn't, because that was impressive calling of the game through literally the red mist.
Bayern actually scored twice in that period as well. They won 7-1.
just don't know.
Just no one saw it.
Yeah, all the towels were taken from both goals. It was a nightmare. No one saw a thing. Taylor, any other Bundesliga games you want to bring your attention to? Hoffenheim with the 1-0 win over Leverkusen.
Yeah.
Lovely free kick to settle that one, wasn't it?
Which he meant? What do you think, Ryan?
Well,
Definitely
it was because it was the angle it was from. It was kind of from the right flank, wasn't it? I think it was one where there wasn't anyone. It didn't look like a cross to me because there wasn't anyone there to receive it.
Yeah, and I think even his reaction was sort of like, yes, it worked, because I think maybe that means they've spotted that Mark Flecken, the goalkeeper for Leverkusen, who has to come out of this game with injury, I think maybe cheats on those types of set pieces, or maybe gets his positioning closer to like the near post, and so bending it around him into the far post could work out, and it did. So credit to Borja for that one, and a lovely goal it was. I thought this game would be much more open and much more entertaining. I did not think it would finish 1-0, but I think it's an incredibly important win for Hoffenheim, that is, to kind of, as I said in the Weekender, like make their claim that they can be a top 4 team. They are now into third. level on points with Stuttgart, but ahead of Leverkusen, ahead of Leipzig, given their results this weekend, ahead of Frankfurt. I mean, it's not where we thought Hoffenheim would be. I don't think it's where Hoffenheim thought they would be. Certainly not at this point last year, but probably not even to start the season. But it's a comprehensive win in which they aren't really that threatened by Leverkusen. I thought it was a really underwhelming performance from Leverkusen again, and I think they still have a lot of issues that they are trying to figure out. But for Hoffenheim, it's definitely one to build on and one to inspire confidence as they try to stay in the Champions League places.
Indeed. And Dortmund with the 3-2 win over St. Pauli as well. Dortmund had a 2-0 lead that came back to 2-2, but they got the dub in the end ahead of their game with Spurs. Wonderful stuff. Very good. Serie A now. A quick run through. Inter are still on top of the pile with a 1-0 win at Udinese. Of course, it was Lautaro Martinez getting the goal there. Napoli kept pace with a 1-0 win over Sassuolo. Roma, they had Paulo Dybala. Remember him? He had a goal and an assist.
Handsome lad.
Yeah, it was pretty good. 2-0 win over at Torino, I should say, which put Roma in the back in the Champions League race, I should say. That was very good stuff. And one more game to mention, Milan 1, Lecce 0. Niklas Füllkrug, who replaced Chrissy Pulisic and scored the winner 4 minutes later in that one. His first goal since shaking the West Ham stank on loan for Niklas Füllkrug there. Very good indeed. There's one more league to look at, Graham Ruffin. It is the Liga. Two very interesting games for the top two sides, I would say. Should we start with Real Madrid 2, Levante 0? Second half goals from Mbappe and Raul Asensio. But the first half was very interesting with the crowd booing, getting the hankies out, the handkerchiefs, and very, very unhappy, chanting Florentino dimission or Florentino resign. They were not best pleased, and then kind of had to suck it up when their team won, it seemed, at the end.
Yeah, the reaction from the fans is the most headline-worthy thing from this game. The match itself was sort of unremarkable. Like, Real Madrid were the better team, deserved the win. Took them a while to get going, didn't score until the second half. It was quite interesting that Arbeloa used Garcia as part of a front three with Vinicius and Mbappe. Thought that worked quite well, largely because Garcia is actually, despite being a penalty box poacher, is actually willing to put in some work and is willing to shade to the right wing. So thought the balance was okay there. But yeah, the reaction from the Real Madrid fans, particularly before the game, was remarkable. So the way that they do things at the Bernabeu and at most sort of big stadiums is obviously they read out the player names. Everyone was whistled, but especially Mbappe, Vinicius and Bellingham, all of whom were reportedly instrumental in forcing
Did you say
Xabi
Mbappe?
Alonso. Yes, that's
Okay,
right.
good.
Yeah.
The one that I heard in the game was Fede Valverde. That was the other one who seemed to get
I'm sure that happened,
the brunt of the whistles. The ones that I heard most deliberately during the game in the first half were Valverde, Vinicius, and Bellingham, who, I think were some of the ringleaders. So that was really interesting to me, that it wasn't just opening whistles. It wasn't just the first 5 minutes were going to be silent. It felt like for a very long time it was whistles and boos and a strong sentiment of we are not happy with the way this club is being run.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely dissent that stretched into the first half. The video of the announcements was only a short video, so I didn't get the full team. It was kind of towards the end of the lineup. Obviously, Bellingham, Vinicius and Mbappe being attackers. I'm guessing they whistled Valverde before whoever filmed it started filming. But that feels quite notable because Real Madrid has always been a club for superstars, right? They've always been a players' club, as we kind of mentioned on last week's Big Thing episode. But clearly the fans feel the superstars are to blame for how this season has gone. So I don't know if it'll amount to anything, but it does feel worthy of mentioning that.
There was a clip of the warm-up. I don't know if you saw this, Graham, the Real Madrid warm-up of Dean Huijsen injuring Mbappe during a rondo. And obviously Mbappe played in this game, but I don't know how that was perceived by the fans as well, because I don't know how favourably they looked upon Mbappe for rolling around on the floor after a rondo.
I haven't actually seen that clip. So
Nobody cared, I'll tell you that much. Not in terms of supporters, but Huijsen did it and then walked away because they were warming up, and they just continued to warm up as Mbappe rolled around on the ground, and it seemed like maybe stepped on his toe. I think if that's your teammate in warm up, you could give a little man, come on, and shake it off while standing. I don't think you have to go down and roll around like you're trying to get a card in the pre-match.
I think Huijsen should have bent over like Roy Keane style and shouted, "Get up!" in his face.
Just hold him back up.
I'm sure that would have gone down well, yeah.
Very good. Real Madrid, obviously, massive recovery from that Clasico and Copa del Rey defeat with this
underwhelming win over Levante. Barcelona with the loss. Real Sociedad 2, Barcelona 1. 10-man Real Sociedad, no less, beating the leaders, ending their 9-game winning streak. Real Sociedad, of course, coached by Pellegrino Matarazzo of the United States of America.
Yeah, and he's had a great start. I think it's 2 wins and a draw from his first 3 games. Obviously, this makes a statement. Soccer is a weird sport, though, because Barcelona were really good for the majority of this match. I thought the first 30 minutes, and this was happening at the same time as the AFCON final, so I was slightly distracted by what was happening in that game. But the first 30 minutes might have been the best 30 minutes of their season so far. They had a goal disallowed by Fermin Lopez, and the broadcast I was watching, for whatever reason, barely showed a replay, but I kind of thought it looked like a legit goal. But that was a moment where Barca won the ball high up, and they did that a lot in the first half. They had 3 goals disallowed in the first half. They had runners from everywhere. I thought Fermin and Ferran Torres, who started as the centre forward, they were dragging the Real Sociedad defence all over the place. Lamine Yamal was brilliant on the right side. So by full time, Barcelona had 3 disallowed goals, a cancelled penalty kick. They'd hit the post 5 times. Ramiro made a bunch of saves. They had 9 big chances in this game. So, legitimately, this is one of the best games I've seen Barcelona play this season. But Oyarzabal and Gonzalo Guedes pulled 2 brilliant finishes out their backside to win it for La Real. So, sometimes soccer is just like that.
There you go. Wonderful stuff. Pellegrino Matarazzo, by the way, from Wayne, New Jersey. Joe, would you like to hear some other famous people from Wayne, New Jersey?
I would
Fountains
love
of Wayne.
to. I feel like we've done this bit before. Have we done this bit before?
We
Don't
definitely
know.
have.
You tell me.
Say it.
Queen Latifah,
Yeah.
Mark Maron,
Yeah.
Greg Olson,
Oh,
ends.
nice. Good list. Good squad.
But also,
really,
it's-
actually, good squad.
The inspiration of Fountains of Wayne, one of your favourite bands, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Joe, named after the Fountain store, which is also in The Sopranos, which I've probably mentioned 10 times on this feed, but I like it as a fact.
Fountains of Wayne's second best water feature adjacent topic we've had today, I would say.
Wonderful. Wonderful stuff. Inspiring.
Underrated
All right.
Christmas song, in my opinion, Fountains of Wayne.
We're done, right?
I Want an Alien for Christmas.
That is
a
good.
good song.
That is good. Fountains of
I
Wayne
agree
are
with
deep.
Joe.
Very good. Just 1 point between the top 2 teams in Spain, and that's it for the Weekend Review. If you'd like to hear more, Weekend Review Extra is on the bonus feed, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed.
I'm trying to find more notable people from Wayne, New Jersey, and I am coming up short. My pleasure, my friend. Nice talking to you.
I mean, Mark Maron, king of podcasters, you can't get much higher than that, frankly, Taylor.
He was. He abdicated.
He did indeed. When you reach the top, where else can you
Daryl
go?
from Run DMC. I'll give that one up.
There you go. Very nice. We'll keep that going on the bonus feed. Graham Ruthven, thank you very much indeed.
Do we have to? Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
Joe Lowry, thank you again.
Retweet what Graham said. Thanks, guys.
Listener, thank you very much for joining us on this one. We'll be back on the feed very shortly indeed. But for now, bye.